Sara Gilbert and Johnny Galecki dated for years while working on Roseanne, but something didn't feel right. She would feel sad every time they kissed, but she didn't know why. After that, she fell in love with someone else. A woman who was 18 years older and famous. But she kept it a secret for almost 10 years. She was afraid that Hollywood would end her career. The secret had already cost her something she could never get back by the time she finally came out in 2010. And the person she was actually protecting wasn't who you may imagine. Sara Gilbert was born on January 29, 1975, at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, California. Sarah Rebecca Abel Leese was born to Barbara Cowan, who had been a child actress in the 1950s, and Harry Crane, who created the famous comedy show The Honeymooners in 1951. Sarah was born into the world of entertainment, but it wasn't easy. Barbara's mother had been married to Paul Gilbert before. He was a vaudeville performer and a pilot in World War II. He adopted Barbara's two children, Melissa and Jonathan. In 1972, that marriage came to an end. The family hid the fact that Paul Gilbert killed himself on February 13, 1976, for decades, telling everyone he died of a stroke at first. Sarah was little over a year old at the time. Sarah was already seeing the attention that her older half-sister Melissa, who appeared in Little House on the Prairie, was getting by the time she was 6. Sarah watched as Melissa became famous and got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at age 21. She once remarked that she wanted to act just because she was jealous of how much attention Melissa got on set. Sarah officially took on the last name Gilbert in 1984, when she was 9. This was a way for her to connect with the same lineage. Sarah's siblings, Melissa and Jonathan, weren't related to her or to each other by blood, but they were all part of a convoluted, well-known family. When Sarah was about 6 years old, she was in a Kool-Aid ad for the first time. Her acting debut occurred 3 years later in a 1984 CBS TV movie called Calamity Jane when she played a character named Jean. Because her mother wanted things to stay normal, she was still going to ordinary school, unlike many other young performers. Barbara, her mother, made sure the business didn't eat her up. Barbara had worked in show business and run a production company, but she put Sarah in public school and kept her away from the normal problems. That steady touch changed everything. Everything changed in 1988. Sarah tried out for Roseanne and got the part of Darlene Connor, the caustic tomboy middle child who rapidly became a fan favorite. She had simply not gotten the part in a new version of Facts of Life. But Roseanne was correct. She once remarked that making fun of her sister Melissa when they were kids had taught her all the funny timing she needed for the part. And it did work. She was so good at her job that she got 2 Emmy nominations during the show's first season. Sarah didn't stop going to school even after she became a TV celebrity. She started going to Yale University in 1993 while still working on Roseanne. From 1993 until 1997, the production worked around her class schedules, even recording her sequences in New York while she was in class in Connecticut. She got her degree in art with a specialty on photography in 1997, the same year Roseanne completed its original run. Sarah never really knew Paul Gilbert, yet his death had a big impact on her life. Melissa, her sister, didn't find out the truth about Paul's suicide until 2009. He had been in suffering for a long time because of injuries he had during the war, and he killed himself aged 57. For decades, the story had been hidden away. Barbara, on the other hand, had 2 identities. Over the years, she went by a number of different professional names. Barbara Crane, Barbara Abels, and Barbara Cowan all have names that help her keep her personal and professional lives separate. She always wanted to keep Sarah safe. And it was clear. Sarah's childhood was steadier, safer, and more grounded than Melissa's, which was full of media demands. Sarah was already a young professional when she starred in the ABC weekend special Runaway Ralph in 1988, the same year she got Roseanne. The program, which was based on Beverly Cleary's novel and starred Fred Savage, got her ready for what was to follow. Then Roseanne came on and things sped up. She played Darlene from 1988 to 1997, and her character changed the way people thought about TV teens. The show wasn't scared to go deep. In Season 4's Darlene Fades to Black from 1991, the character grappled with depression. Sara kept everything in balance. School scripts, expectations, and continued getting bigger. The connection between her and Johnny Galecki's David Healy on television started in season 4. It brought out the show's emotional undertones, especially when John Goodman, who played Dan, addressed them. The scenes seemed real. Fans remember how tense it was when Dan saw Darlene and David kissing. It wasn't just acting well. It was like the fights between fathers and daughters that happen all throughout the country. Sara was not only acting in season 6, which aired in 1993 and 1994, she was also crafting her character. She began to change the storylines by advocating for more female themes and issues that are real. Eventually, this turned into full creative control. She was the lead and executive producer of the Roseanne reboot that started in 2018. She made $300,000 each episode. She helped develop the writing even in the first series. In an episode from 1989, her character presented a poem that showed how unhappy she really was underneath the cynicism. "Too short to be quarterback, too plain to be queen" was one of the lines in the poem. It hit home. She even gained credit for creating the episode "Don't Make Me Over" by 1992. She had big roles in movies in between her TV work. In 1990, she starred in Sooty and Simpson opposite Louis Gossett Jr. as a girl in segregated Georgia who becomes friends with a black guy hidden in the woods. The movie dealt with bigotry and abuse, and it won her a Young Artist Prize. In 1992, she acted with Drew Barrymore in Poison Ivy. The movie didn't do well in theaters, but it became a cult hit, especially on TV. Gilbert played Sylvie Cooper, a sheltered teenager who Barrymore's menacing persona slowly manipulates. She was nominated for an Independent Spirit Award for her performance. But things didn't always go smoothly. People have different opinions about the 1997 Roseanne series finale. It showed that majority of season 9 was made up. Dan was dead, the couples had switched, and the lottery win never happened. Fans thought it was a betrayal. Sara even said subsequently that the show should have ended after season 8. They changed the ending when the relaunch came out in 2018. Dan was back to life. The timeline started over, and Sara was finally able to control the story from behind the scenes. Sara Gilbert joined ER in late 2004 as Drive Jane Figler, a calm medical student who had to deal with the pandemonium at County General. She was already famous for playing Darlene on Roseanne, but the writers didn't give her much room to work with here. For 3 years, her character came and went from episodes with no meaningful story until one contentious surprise. At one time, she was in a bizarre BDSM relationship with Dr. Crenshaw. This got a lot of attention because nothing else about her character was interesting. That didn't go anyplace either. Gilbert would go away for a while and then come back without saying why. She participated in 15 episodes from 2004 to 2007, although she never really made an impact. It was like watching Darlene in Scrubs, where she was stuck in the background as the show went on. Then came the show The Big Bang Theory. She played Dr. Leslie Winkle, a no-nonsense experimental physicist, in October 2007. She rapidly became Leonard's love interest. Fans observed how crisp her deadpan delivery was. She was in early episodes like the Fuzzy Boots Corollary and came back in popular ones like the Hamburger Postulate and the Codpiece Topology. It seemed like the writers had something for a second. She was made a main character in season 2, although that didn't last long. She was returning to becoming a recurrent character by 2009. The show had a hard time figuring her out. She was not Penny. She wasn't Amy. And sometimes her bluntness didn't fit. Gilbert said in an interview in 2025 that the writers had trouble with her character. Her last important appearance was in May 2010, when Leslie turned down Leonard's informal offer. In the 200th episode, she came back again in 2016 for Sheldon's birthday. But at that time, the door had silently shut. Gilbert was working on something that had nothing to do with sitcoms at the same period. As the World Turns was ending after 54 years in December 2009. At that time, she pitched CBS a new type of conversation show. The idea was easy. Women discussing about life, family, and the news from the point of view of being a mother. Later, she joked with Ellen that she was the last person who could do it. The network said yes, even though she was shy, timid, and didn't like small talk. They chose her over an Emerald cooking show and even a Pyramid relaunch with Andy Richter as the host. In July 2010, CBS officially gave it the go-ahead. The chat show started that fall on October 18. Gilbert was more than just a co-host. She was the creator and executive producer, which meant she set the tone and direction. Sharon Osbourne, Julie Chen, Holly Robinson, Pete Leah Remini, and Marissa Jarrett-Waker were the first people on the list. It felt different from the start. The talks were honest, intimate, and sometimes hard to listen to. The discussion program was different from other daytime shows since it talked about arguments and vulnerable moments. People stayed because it seemed real. It was confirmed by the second season. The show had 2.45 million viewers in 1 week in January 2012. During the February sweeps, it climbed by 4% overall, 10% among women 25 to 54, and 13% among women 18 to 49. In March, CBS picked it up again. The talk won a Daytime Emmy in 2016, beating out The View, The Wendy Williams Show, and even Ellen. Critics praised Sara Gilbert's leadership, saying her vision for the performance was both daring and long-deserved. That same bravery was on display during one of the show's most moving scenes. During Secret Week in September 2013, Gilbert talked about something she had never said in public before. She said that while she was seeing Johnny Galecki and filming Roseanne, she began to realize she was gay. At the moment, she couldn't understand why she felt that way. After kissing Galecki, she would feel low and she didn't understand why. He listened to her when she finally informed him, supported her, and never told anybody else. Years later, when she was getting ready to say it out loud on the talk show, she called Galecki. He claimed he would be there for her and even offered to hold her hand if she needed it. That moment reminded folks why the program was so good. It made space for the truth, even when it was hard. Gilbert had been presenting the show for about 10 years by 2019. She said she was going on April 9. She told the crowd that she liked her job, but her life was out of whack. Something had to give between the Connors, making movies, and raising 3 kids. The baby book for her youngest boy was still not done when he was 4. At that point, she knew. She stayed till August and taped her last episode on the 2nd. She said she might come back as a guest from time to time, but her full-time tenure was done. Sara Gilbert never thought that a drawing would lead to all of this. It all began with her and John Goodman on her daytime talk program, where they played with the old personas just for fun. But something clicked. The spark was still there. She couldn't stop thinking about what it would mean to bring Roseanne back, not just for the sake of nostalgia, but for real. So, she suggested the idea. She wanted it to be real, based on real problems that families confront every day. Opioid addiction, broken dreams, and parents moving back in with their kids. She didn't make things sound better than they were. Darlene, the character she played, was now a single mother of 2 who had failed to make it in the arts and had to move back in with her parents. Sara wanted the show to be real and demonstrate what happens when reality gets in the way of your early promise. Before the first new episode had aired, ABC ordered 13 episodes because they liked the concept so much. In August 2018, production was supposed to start up again. The show was going to be back. It was like a bomb went off when the first episode finally came out on March 27, 2018. 18.2 million people watched. Then the next show came on straight after that, and even more people watched it, 18.6 million. It had the biggest opening night of any show that season, beating off Young Sheldon, which had held the record before. The ratings were so high that ABC picked up the show again just 3 days later. But things were already falling apart behind the scenes. It was hard to foretell what Roseanne Barr would do. When she got angry on set, crew members would text each other in shock. She didn't care who was around. The producers also didn't agree on much. Barr had her own thoughts. Whitney Cummings did too. Wanda Sykes also had strong opinions. It was hard to get anything done. The younger crew members were often on edge. It was like everyone was walking through a minefield, hoping that the bar wouldn't blow up that day. It was working, but just barely. Sara Gilbert smiled the whole time on her talk show. She even cried when she talked about how many people had seen it. In front of millions, she thanked Roseanne. She told them she was proud of what they were doing. But when no one was looking, she was the one keeping it all together with her bare hands. She attempted to keep the mood upbeat, stop the younger workers from quitting, and stop Barr from ruining everything, but it got tougher every week. Barr continued tweeting stuff that she had to take off. Every time she took up the phone, the producers were frightened. Sara realized she was stuck. She was the main character. She was in charge of making it. She was the one who worked to get this back. And now she was the one who was fighting to keep things from falling apart. She felt a horrible feeling that they were running out of time, even if ABC was willing to keep it continuing. It all came to an end around 2:45 a.m. on May 29, 2018. Roseanne tweeted something that made everything fall apart. She said, "Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes had a baby Chuvai Gigi." She was talking about Valerie Jarrett, a black woman who worked closely with President Obama. The internet went crazy. ABC pulled the plug just a few hours later. Channing Duniya, the president of ABC, termed the tweet horrible and canceled the show right away. The CEO of Disney stated it was the only choice. Wanda Sykes left right away. Sara didn't even know what was going on. She learned about it during emergency conference calls that were like fire drills. Overnight, 200 people who worked on the show lost their jobs. One tweet had ruined ABC's most successful comeback in years. Sara didn't freak out. She sprang into action to save something, anything. But the show was over. After that, things got worse. Sara tweeted that Roseanne's words were awful and didn't represent anyone else on the show the same day. She stated she was sad, and she meant it. A few days later, she acknowledged on the discussion that she agreed with ABC's choice and felt bad for the staff. Roseanne, on the other hand, didn't forgive her. Barr told Sara in an interview the next year that she had ruined her life. She said, "She'll never be satisfied until she eats my liver with a fine Chianti." It wasn't just treachery. It was poison. In 2023, Barr said again that Sara attacked her in the back and used her talk program to act horrified at her prejudice. At the same time, ABC started airing The Conners. Roseanne wasn't in the spin-off. Sara continued on as the main star and executive producer. Roseanne didn't get anything. The Conners' debut episode was on the air on October 16, 2018. But there was something wrong. Roseanne Barr tweeted a racist tweet a few months ago, which resulted to the cancellation of the revival of the original program. Sara Gilbert took on a big job. She had to keep the whole series going without the most famous person in it. More than 10.5 million viewers watched the first episode, in which the family found out that Roseanne had not died of a heart attack but of an overdose of opioids. There were painkillers all over the house. Roseanne had been discreetly collecting medicines from numerous locations to help with her knee discomfort because surgery was too expensive. Sara, Bruce Helford, and Dave Kaplan all worked together to change her character Darlene into a single mother who had to return back home. Roseanne didn't like it. She said it was too dark for no reason. But ABC didn't give up. They let the new tale unfold, which gave the Conners a second chance on TV. Sara didn't just act, she was in charge of the program from 2018 until 2025. She was both the lead and the executive producer for all 111 episodes and 7 seasons. Season 3 started in October 2020, and it hit close to home. There was a lot of and the show showed it. The family had masks on. Darlene had a job in a manufacturing. Mark checked the temps at the door. These weren't merely guesses that were written down. The writers, including Sara, used their own experiences during the pandemic to write the sequences. The way they filmed was different too. No audience, constant testing, and everyone on set had to wear masks unless when the camera was rolling. Sara said it seemed uncomfortable and vulnerable to take off a mask and act, but they did it nonetheless, telling stories about genuine problems like losing a job, getting an eviction notice, and being alone. She added subsequently that it provided her a feeling of purpose during a period when she didn't know what to do. But not everything went as planned. That same season, in late 2020, ratings started to fall quickly. There was a lot of political fatigue. People who watched were sick of anything serious. On February 11, 2020, a special live broadcast related to the New Hampshire primary aired, and it raised viewership to 6.34 million for a short time. But it didn't last long. People wanted to get away from politics. So Sara and the producers changed their minds halfway through the season. They included more funny parts and concentrated on family dysfunction and awkward dating situations instead of serious ones. The turn worked. The Conners was ABC's most popular comedy, and for younger viewers, it was second only to Modern Family, with only 275,000 fewer viewers. There was a price to pay for all of this. Sara got a good pay. She made between $375,000 and $400,000 per episode during the last season, making her one of the highest-paid actors along with John Goodman and Laurie Metcalf. But it wasn't easy to get. It was a huge responsibility to keep the Connor legacy alive without Roseanne. Sara once remarked, "Living those characters for so many years got deep in our souls." Balancing weekly shoots, production stress, and her own family life drained her. In 2025, after filming was ended, she claimed it didn't feel real that it was over. She and Laurie kept repeating they couldn't believe it. The end occurred on April 23, 2025. The last episode was a two-part conclusion. The first program started in 1988, which was precisely 37 years ago. The actors smashed the fourth wall at one unforgettable moment. They really cried. They said goodnight to each other one by one. Dan Connor and John Goodman sat alone on the couch. Then he looked at the camera, stopped, and said, "Good night." That was his plan. It was the ideal last note for a spectacle that had been going on for so long. Sara's trip wasn't only about the show. When she began dating Johnny Galecki in the early 1990s, something didn't feel right. Later, she stated she'd kiss him and then feel sad and confused. At first, Johnny didn't grasp it. But he stood by her when Sara informed him she thought it was about her sexuality. She was scared. She was scared she would lose her job. Worried that no one would cast her again. At the time, she was dating a famous older woman who was 18 years older than her. But it was all a secret. She was afraid for a long time after that. Sara ultimately came out to the public in July 2010, when she was promoting her new talk program, The Talk. But by that time, she had been dating TV producer Ali Adler for about 10 years. Levi Hank was born in 2004 and Sawyer Jane was born in 2007. She added during the press conference, "I don't really think of things as out or in. I just think I am who I am." A year later, in 2011, she and Adler broke up. They stayed close and agreed to raise their kids together. After that, Sara fell in love again, this time with Linda Perry, the singer for the band Four Non-Blondes. They began dating in late 2011. On April 8, 2013, Sara shocked everyone by announcing their engagement on the talk show. The proposal took place during a picnic. Linda took out one t-shirt at a time. "You, Mary, and I," and then a ring came. John Waite even showed up and sang "Missing You" live for them. Their folks were nearby, hiding and observing everything. They got married on March 30, 2014, by the ocean in Malibu as the sun went down. On February 28, 2015, their son Elio was born. But things became busy quickly. Sara was working on Roseanne, The Conners, and hosting The Talk all at the same time in the 2017 to 2018 TV season. She cried on the air on April 9, 2019, and stated she had to go. She couldn't keep everything in order anymore. Her youngest child was barely 4 years old. She hadn't even made a baby album for him. That August, her last episode of Talk aired. A few months later, on December 27, she asked the court to separate her from Perry. The divorce took a long time, 5 years in total, but it was never ugly. It was official in December 2024. They were still close, though. Linda told People magazine in June 2025, "We're never not going to be a family." Sara concurred. "It's a really beautiful relationship," she added. They still co-parent their son, Rhodes, who is now 9. No one paid spousal support. Linda even joked that Sara had to keep her out of the house because she visits so often. Sara kept working. She started a production company with Tom Werner in May 2019. The company is named Sara plus Tom. It was a big thing. Tom was the same producer who cast her as Darlene when she was only 13. Mandy Summers became the head of production. Their purpose was clear: make people laugh and cry with your shows. Sara had just left the talk a month ago to work on other things. Just like this. She would also be willing to go back to the Big Bang Theory world. She remarked in 2025 that she would love to portray Dr. Leslie Winkle again in the spin-off Stuart Fails to Save the Universe. She said she didn't leave the first show on purpose. She assumed the writers had run out of ideas for her character, but she's always ready to work. The new spin-off has some of the former cast members, like Barry Kripke and Bert. Sara is anxious to join if they call. There are still some dark spots from the past. Sara had made her position known after Roseanne's Twitter fiasco in 2018. She talked on the talk show on June 3, 2018, and said it had been a challenging week and a lot of people were upset. Her prior tweet labeling Roseanne's comment horrible had set off a controversy. Roseanne never let it go. She remarked that Sara let her down. In a podcast from 2023, she said that she had broken a pledge to protect her. She even said that murdering off her character was designed to make her want to kill herself. Sara never shot back. She only mentioned that she agreed with ABC's choice, even though more than 200 crew workers lost their jobs. Sara Gilbert is at a new beginning now that the Connors is over. For almost 40 years, she was Darlene. It may be ended for good, yet her next chapter is just starting. As Professor Judd in Netflix's Atypical, she had a dramatic role. She is still working with Tom Werner, still writing stories, and still showing up. She says she wants to make things that are important, entertaining, and moving. It's evident that she's not done with whatever she does next. Not even close.